So much fear. Draw the curtains, gas the light, the paintings on the walls at night. A threat of menacing their sleep. Unless that's Loras holds the key. If the child just span the bed, force ideas into its head, let punishment be fit the crime. At 10 years you're doing time. These adults so kind of wise instill their fears behind their eyes. Now be a good boy and get to sleep before the Sandman comes. That's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. Ringy-tooty-toot. Ringy-tooty-toot.
Jumping all over the place here.
Yeah.
Going back to Crass.
Yeah.
You guys were investigated by the KGB, the CIA, MI5. Do you think they still keep an eye on you now?
Of course they do. Of course they fucking do. Yeah. I dare say we pop up on a little thing now and again, and they check us out, but I would see how old we are and I go, oh, no worries.
Yeah, they're not a threat anymore.
I mean, we just, really all we did was take the mickey out of them.
Well, that's it. You weren't a threat to anybody, but...
Yeah, but that's what they're there for, isn't it? Something to take the mickey out of them. I mean, come on. We make this sort of ridiculously farcical cassette tape that we send to Europe, and then it comes back and Thatcher and Reagan talking about, nuclear war and Britain is expendable and all this, and it's a KGB thing, and no, it's oh, and I remember we had to go and do in London. I can't remember where it was, but in one room was the Russian press, and in the other room was the American press. So we had to go from room to room separately to interview and all this, talking about this bloody tape, and it was just a joke, right? Anyway, the Russians, of course, had vodka. So we took a bottle of that through to the American side and got them a bit sort of levered up and all this. So in the end we went, look, this is ridiculous. Why don't we all sit in the same room and just have one big interview, so everyone drunk on vodka? And in the end we left early, went down the pub and just left the Americans and the Russians to it. It's like
left them with the vodka and
turned it into a party. Yeah, it was great, and that's the way it should be.
I agree with that completely. What would you say is the most interesting thing that's happened to you over the years that you've been involved with music?
Oh, God, there's so much to choose from. Interesting, I think. Interesting, I would rather say humbling. But it wasn't until, I was on tour with the Last Supper thing. And the amount of people that came up to me, in tears, because Crass's music and words helped them through a really bad time in their lives. And I mean, I had to hold them so tight, and really sobbing, and I was like, my God, we really did make an effect, somehow, whether certain ex-members of Crass just think it was a phase and we ended up being like the Tory party. Well, get off your arse. Get off your backside, get out there and go and meet people, and you will see, whether you like it or not, that what we did as that band touched people, including me, very deeply inside, and you can't take that away and you can't diss it, and if you do, you should be ashamed of yourself.
I agree with that, because
Absolutely.
You came out at a time when many of us who were into the band were very young, and it had such an impact and an influence on how we grew up.
I was talking to some guy downstairs, Jonesy, right? He's from one of the bands tonight, and he goes, "Oh, the first time I saw you was at Ebden Bridge up north. I was 13, and I went, my God, 13-year-old kids being exposed to that, and with big, dirty, great skinheads having a go at them and all this. Yeah. But I mean, you equate that to a 13-year-old today, and it's like, well, what do you? Well, I'm, on the Xbox, whatever thing is, whereas they were out there getting busted hitchhiking at 13 to go and see a gig.
Of anarchist punks.
Of course it's touched people, but being in the band, you don't realise that because you're just doing it, and as I say, it's only, since 2008 I've really realised that, it's really and me as well. Of course it has, because I still live my life according to those sort of principles. It's an absolute nuisance. should I go to Costa Coffee or not? Or, you know, will anyone see me?
You go where you want.
Yeah, so of course, yeah, but I don't go in McDonald's.
I agree with that one.
Well, I must admit, I've used the toilet once, and that's it.
I think that one's permitted. That's a very apropos use of the McDonald's.
Right, whatever that means. Thank you. Yeah.
Appropriate.
Right. Oh, thank you. Could have said that in the first place.
I couldn't think of it.
See, trying to be all clever.
Trying to be all clever because I couldn't think of the real word.
And there we have a scoop.
Yes. I forget things. You see, it's that getting old bit again.
I know. Yep.
Yeah, you lose those words every now and again. That does bring me to anarchy. Mm-hmm. People often, when we were young, people thought anarchy was about violence and about destruction of government and destruction of all social systems. And it wasn't. It was more about self-rule and fulfillment and taking care of others like you wanted people to take care of yourself. And on the whole, maybe I'm misspeaking. And I wanted to get what your thought of it is and where you think it is now. And is it appropriate now?
Well, on one hand, you know, if people talk to me, you know, I would say it's almost Christian-like, you know, where it's respect, you know, other people as you respect yourself, and that's what anarchism is all about. And yes, it's about self-rule. And it's about taking responsibility for your own life and your own actions, and you've got to realise what your actions, the consequences of which could be a problem. It's that kind of thing. Of course, you know, it was a lovely dream, you know. Do I call myself an anarchist now? Sometimes, you know, I just see myself as a human. Actually, I'm just a grumpy old git now, but you know, but still, and that's my anarchism, you know, being a grumpy old git. Yeah. But the violence and stuff like that, you know, and bomb throwing and you know, all this terrorism is not anarchism, you know, and the violent aspect of it is not anarchism. That's chaos. Yeah. But I think you would have to go through those things to get, you know, the anarchist thing. Then you've got a problem with all the splinter groups of what anarchism you're into, whether it's anarcho-syndicalist, anarcho-pacifist, anarcho, whatever they are, at which point I get bored, go out and go down a pub. Do you brew your own beer being an anarchist? No, I don't. I buy off corporate people, sell out. So, you know, but for me personally, my anarchism, yes, it is still there. But my anarchism came from not the books that I was meant to read, like Bakunin and Malatesta and all that. I tried it, bored me arse off. Long words that I didn't understand, a history lesson, and I had enough of that at school. And for me, my anarchism comes from the black and white 60s films like Saturday Night and Sunday Morning and A Taste of Honey. And that sort of thing, Sheila Delaney, the books of Barry Hines, Alan Sillitoe, the 60s writers, and not even the ones that are recognised as 60s. There's a great film called Whistle Down the Wind, black and white film, and I'd recommend people to watch that because that's what filmmakers were doing back in the 60s. Yeah. With a real message to it, all about the loss of innocence and in the injustice we suffer, you know, in this life. And that's where my anarchism came from, was that era. Yeah. I could understand that. And I have to say, you know, a little bit of Walt Whitman got in there, you know. No, seriously. And Hubert Selby Jr., Last Exit to Brooklyn.
Oh, yes.
You know, when I read that, at first it made me out of breath because there was no punctuation, but I got into it. And I was like, that's like Dagenham, but in America. So I got that. And to me, that was a punk, anarchist way of writing. Jack Kerouac, of course, on the road. Ginsberg was a bit sort of thing for me, but I sort of got it. But Neil Cassidy, of course, you know, the first third, his autobiography, and I was like, mate, that bloke was a punk rocker. You know, he was an anarchist, totally out and out, you know, helped by amphetamines and all that, of course, but that was the era. Absolutely, you know, so, and you look at all the musicians from that time, look at Bernstein. You know, West Side Story, what an impact that made, you know, to take that Shakespeare play and turn it into West Side Story about gangs, and I understood it. And then I went to see Romeo and Juliet. Oh, God, that was boring.
Yeah, Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, Shakespeare is the best thing. No, he's not.
Brilliantly written.
If you could understand it.
That's it. It's
and no one
kept in...
Have you ever seen a Shakespeare play?
Yes.
Right. Oh, forsooth to be, and blah, blah, and it's all this shouting with these posh voices. Shakespeare lived in Stratford-on-Avon, where they all sort of talk like that. You know, it's a bit like Birmingham, so the play must have been sort of to be or not to be. That is the...
And apparently during Shakespeare's time, the accent was even closer to mine. So they sound nothing like... Yeah. Just made you go up a few octaves.
Beverly Hills Cop geezer.
Yeah. Apparently it was the American accent kind of kept more of the original from the 1600s.
I don't know, you're getting everywhere, you lot, didn't you? You just can't stay on your own side of the bloody pond. Anyway, carry on.
No, I had to go and come back to where my ancestors came from.
Oh, all right.
I wanted to get that accent back.
Yeah, Swiss French.
Sit you over.
With a bit of little Welsh chucked in as well, yeah.
Where do you see yourself going with music in the future? Do you plan on just keeping with...
Probably hospital. And then the old people's home.
Well, I think we should have a punx old people's home.
You know what, I can't wait for them. We're all sitting there in wheelchairs and it's like, I saw these band before you. Who's that band then? That's Penetration. No, it's not. That's Debbie Harry. It's going to be all those.
Exactly.
We're all sitting there with our soup.
Yep. And our little bibs and everything, yeah.
Egg yolk down their vests.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, I can't wait.
Anyway, we're going to have the best ones.
Where do I see myself? Oh dear, it's Friday night in Birmingham.
Yes.
Where do I see myself in music?
Yeah, where do you think you're going to go with music? Do you think you're just going to stay with what you're doing now, or do you think that you're looking at any other projects to work on?
As far as I can. I mean, I'd really love to get a brass section and a string section together. So, but of course that costs money. Yeah. So to do that, I'm gonna. I've got to raise money from somewhere. I've got some sort of pristine condition flexi discs and test pressings of a certain band that I'm going to have to auction on the internet, so I can just raise money to go into the studio, because to me it's just sitting there in the cupboard, and if someone wants it, I'd rather use that to generate finance for the next project with Slice of Life.
Yeah. And if you're not interested in having it, using it, keeping it, loving it, let it go and get the money to do something means.
To me, it's just, I ain't got a record player. I keep threatening to get one, but I ain't got one, so it's just sitting there. Do I really want, when am I going to play that and listen to myself screaming I must live in? I can do it tonight if I want. So but if it was a first edition signed copy of Kes by, or Saturday Night and Sunday morning, of course I'd be, I want that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just
someone will feel the same about yours. So
absolutely, of course. I mean, if someone wants to pay sort of zillions of quid for it, get in touch.
Yeah, he wants to sell it, zillions of quids. Get in touch with him. And I think my final question for you is totally off the mark with everything else here. I'm curious as to how you met your partner, because she apparently was not in punk at all. She didn't know who you were.
Didn't have a clue. Right. I was still living at Dale House with Crass, and G was doing Tai Chi. So she brought the Tai Chi crew over to practice in the garden. And I was sitting with my mum, because my stepdad had died a few weeks ago, and I brought my mum over, sitting with my mum, and this woman with long blonde hair at the time, and I went, bloody hell, mum, I'm going to have that. And she went, she's well out of your league. And I went, I'll have her. Right. She comes over, sits in between me. I'm Steve, I live here. And she went, I'm the owner, I'm the Tai Chi. I'm like, blah, blah. Then my mum starts snapping, so I couldn't get a word in edgeways. So I walked off in a huff. Right. It took me about 3 weeks to phone her, and say, look, would you like to go out for a drink? And we did, and we met, and I joined a Tai Chi club just to get near it. I hated every second of it. Oh,
that's
God.
Slow motion.
Oh, and this twatty was teaching me as well, because they were doing their set over there of the 150 moves or whatever. Now, what you do is you move this. What? What? Because I've got tendinitis from years of like, what? No, you put your finger here and you do this. And really irritating, just to go. Oh, and I was so embarrassed, so nervous. Anyway, eventually we got together. Yeah.
And I think that has to be one of the best stories I've heard of a couple getting together.
Oh, mate, it was pathetic.
I wouldn't say pathetic. I think it's very sweet.
But it's turned out all right. It's turned out all right. Yeah, she's great. She's she's the one who really keeps Slice of Life together. Because she's the consigliere.
Yes. She's extraordinarily organized and a very nice lady. So.
Oh yeah. She's wonderful. She's wonderful.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with me.
Well, thank you very much, and I think that's my career shot down in pieces with all the secrets I've given away tonight. So help yourself.
Well, thank you for all your secrets.
But that's all right.
Then let it be. All we ever wanted is a street that it's got taste, it's got claws, it's got meat, it's got chuck. Camelot or people.